We pick up the figure next walking towards the marketplace, then walking through the market and crossing the road towards Market Street. A limp can be identified. This is probably the same person, i.e. not Tommy Mair. There are a number of clips in Birstall town centre where he appears to be going between the marketplace and the top of Market Street, repeatedly crossing Chapel Lane. This CCTV camera is located on Chapel Lane at the top of Market Street outside the Vape Lounge, which is just 30 metres from the library. Here we get a good view of the suit jacket and the pigeon-toed, slightly inverted walk described by Damon. This is definitely not Tommy Mair. Mark Conlon, who has done detailed analysis on the CCTV evidence, has been able to marry up some of the Chapel Lane shots with the Vape Lounge shots. He determined that the clock on the Vape Lounge CCTV system is about 10 minutes slow.
The person walks onto the pavement and is hanging around on a wide pavement. You can clearly see, as he walks onto the pavement, he's got much smaller feet. And once again, it's a different walking pattern. If you break it down, slow it down, and go into still frames, you will see that this guy has got a slight inversion with his feet as he walks, okay, pigeon-toed. And the left foot, I've noticed, this is the clearest we have. The left foot slightly swings. It's a very strange walk. So he's not only pigeon-toed, it's got a slight swing to it. If you keep going through the footage, you'll see this swing. You'll see this. It's almost like he throws it as he's walking forward. Okay. I also did notice, having spent a lot of time around military people, one particular part of the footage when he's hanging around, he does a very strange movement. He actually, as he turns round, he throws his left leg behind his right leg and looks around. Now, I've been with enough, when you're on march, okay, when you are turning around, they always teach you to throw your left leg behind your right leg and swing your body around when you're going. It just looked very similar.
Right.
That's all. It just looked like a very similar manoeuvre.
Now, can you compare that footage, Damon, with the Market Street footage immediately after the murder? Is it the same person?
Okay. Okay. What I think I can tell you is this guy's wearing different shoes as well. Okay, he's not wearing heavy-duty boots. I would say, actually, it looks like this guy's wearing no more than a loafer-type shoe. Maybe a black pair of trainers, something like that, but it's certainly not heavy-duty boots that you see Tommy wearing. And I think this is a distinction that needs to be made.
This clip is taken by a bus CCTV camera passing the same man in the suit jacket. Again, I do not believe it is Tommy Mair. I suspect it is the same man as in all the other clips, the military hitman. It's worth mentioning here that as far as I am aware, only one person, Stephen Lees, claims to have seen Tommy Mair in Birstall town centre that day. I tried to track Stephen Lees down, but I could not find him living in Birstall. I called at a flat in Birstall, registered to Stephen Lees. A woman answered and said she'd never heard of him and she'd been living in that flat for 10 years. Lees claims he tried to speak to the person he thought was Tommy Mair, but said the person did not speak back to him. I do not believe Stephen Lees saw Tommy Mair. Mark Conlon thinks this clip taken from the bus may have been tampered with to hide the real perpetrator's face. In this clip we see Joe Cox's car arriving on Market Street. Notice this figure here, just standing by the road. Is this an observer who is part of the operation? The car arrives at dead on 12:51, but the police have censored the most important part at 12:52 when the attack occurs. This is the point where Joe Cox's car parks and where the attack happens. Allowing a minute to reach the parking space, park up and get out of the car, the attack, stated at the trial, started at 12:52 and 3 seconds. I have discovered in my research that the clocks on these council-ran CCTV cameras are synchronised, and in this clip we see the alleged perpetrator crossing the road towards Market Street at 12:51 and 42 seconds. Some people have suggested there is not enough time for him to get to Joe Cox by 12:52. We see the perpetrator disappear from shot at 12:51 and 53 seconds. We need to bear in mind the perpetrator is only about 30 metres away from Joe Cox's car when he disappears from this shot, and is alleged to have ran down Market Street when he saw her. I make the timing spot on. It gives him 10 seconds to get to her over a distance of 30 metres once he has left this shot. That seems about right to me. If the attack started at 12:52 and 3 seconds and lasted for about 90 seconds, the timing is also correct for the perpetrator leaving the scene here at 12:53 and 50 seconds. We've looked at this clip already. I am certain this is not Tommy Mair. This is Joe Cox's car. The attack has just ended. We can see commotion going on around the car.
Market Street footage. There is this very distinctive walking pattern again, but if you study it very, very closely, he's not only throwing the left leg in, it looks like there's a sprain to me, and it looks like he's trying to walk normally, but you can quite clearly see in several places that he almost loses his balance. You can see that he sustained something, maybe a sprain, an ankle sprain during the attack. I don't know, knee sprain maybe even a lower back injury. Could be an ongoing injury, but there's a definite limp there. There's a definite, it's even more pronounced, I would say, than in the other footage. When he's walking down Market Street, you can clearly see the pigeon-toed walk, the stride, and mixed in with this, what I believe is to be a sprain, the guy once again has average sized feet. He doesn't have big feet. In my own opinion, the Market Street and Chapel Street is not Tommy.
One of Tommy's friends told me that if Tommy wanted to go down Union Street, he would not walk all the way to the bottom of Market Street. He would cut across Tesco car park. We'll come back to the alleged murder itself later, but let's continue with the perpetrator's path after he leaves Market Street. It is claimed by two witnesses that he headed down Union Street. He was carrying a black hold-all, a carrier bag and a brown coat over his arm. He is alleged to have dropped the brown coat on Union Street before continuing onto Huddersfield Road. The official story claims that he then headed to the garden I mentioned earlier on John Nelson Close, where the police say some of his things were found. However, there is no CCTV nor any eyewitness testimony of him going into John Nelson Close. There is a phone call from witness Darren Playford, who claims he followed the perpetrator after Union Street, which I will discuss in detail, but in Playford's phone call he does not say he sees the perpetrator entering or leaving John Nelson Close. The next CCTV image, which is not very clear, is filmed going up the beginning of Hillhead Drive. Then this one on the corner of Hillhead Drive and Hill Crescent. Note the black cap and the lack of any blood on his person from the stabbings.
And I slowed the footage down many times, and I believe this one is Tommy, purely because the size of the foot. He has got very large feet, which I believe in some of the other footage, the person's just got normal sized feet. These are gardening boots, I can tell you that gardening boots, hiking boots, something like that. I would imagine it was King Gardner, wasn't he?
Yeah.
I think we're talking those sort of cat type. They've normally got a heel 1.5 inches high, and they're quite robustly built. So I'm assuming it's that type of boot that he's wearing. So as you see him walking down the path, I've still shotted nearly every single step, and there's no inversion in Tommy's walk whatsoever.
This video, I conclude, is the real Tommy Mair. The next clip is filmed just around the corner on Hill Crescent. No sign of a limp there. This one is probably Tommy. Moving on to the arrest location, the next video we have is shortly after the arrest, filmed by a resident using a mobile phone just after the suspect has been rugby tackled to the ground by police officers. The footage was shown on TV in the early evening the same day, and one media report claimed that Tommy Mair's mother recognised him from this footage. Close friends of Tommy have told me they think this is probably him. He appears to be wearing the same clothes and shoes as in the previous clip on Hillhead Drive. They are quite heavy-looking shoes, possibly steel toe-capped, ideal for gardening. One of the arresting officers at the trial testified that they were steel toe-capped. Unlike the sneaker-type shoe worn by the perpetrator we saw earlier in this clip. We believe that Tommy Mair was the guy walking along Hillhead Drive, and then he's arrested not far from that. And you also believe
Correct.
the man being arrested is the real Tommy Mair. Is that right? Do you want to?
The man arrested is definitely Tommy Mair.
Right.
I've broken the footage down again. We see the same pattern as Tommy's big boots, Tommy's big feet.
I conclude this is the real Tommy Mair in the arrest video. We'll come back to the arrest later.
He had never come to the notice of the police before, living a solitary lifestyle with no social circle around him. This was a murder motivated by Mair's apparent political and ideological beliefs involving the use of a firearm, and as such was an act of terrorism. Evidence of his interest in the extreme right wing has been uncovered. Nothing can excuse the evil and the horror his actions brought to the town of Birstall on the 16th of June this year.
Now let's look at the alleged murder itself. Joe Cox arrived in a silver Vauxhall Astra with two other women, Fazila Aswat, who was driving, and Sandra Major in the passenger seat, with Joe Cox herself in the back. Both of the other women worked for Joe Cox and were accompanying her on her way to the library to attend a public surgery she held every fortnight. Almost as soon as Joe Cox was out of the car and stood on the pavement, she was attacked by the man in the suit jacket and white baseball cap. No CCTV of the alleged murder has been released, so I will read out eyewitness testimonies instead. The red circle in this aerial view shows where the attack took place, in between two parked cars. Cox had just got out of her car and was on the pavement adjacent to the gap between the two parked cars. As I read each of the witness statements, I will show on the aerial view approximately where each of the witnesses were situated. I am sure there are more witnesses, but here is a selection of 15 I have managed to find statements from. Some of these statements are from the trial. The first two on this list, Sandra Major and Fazila Aswat, were featured in a BBC documentary, Death of an MP. So I will show their testimonies from that programme.
I saw a man coming towards us and he just shot Joe in the head. Just like that. Didn't speak a word, didn't say anything. Just walked down the road and shot Joe. I was a bit shocked. At first, I had this irrational thought that it was some sort of publicity stunt about Brexit. Just for a moment, I thought it couldn't be real. It was surreal. The gun seemed like it wasn't a real gun. It sounded like a starting pistol or something. And then Jo fell back on the floor and I saw that there was blood. And then while she was on the floor, I started stabbing her. We were just shouting at him and screaming, and there wasn't really right what else we could do. She shouted out to me and Fazila, and she said, get away, you two. Don't let him hurt you, let him hurt me. He was just so calm and not even concerned. It did seem like a long time till the ambulance came.
Jo jumped out and Sandra got out, and Jo sort of walked behind my car towards the pavement towards where Sandra was. I was trying to swing at him with my handbag. Unfortunately, I didn't sort of catch him, and at that point he pulled the knife out again and sort of went towards me, and I sort of moved back towards the car. Then I could see in the corner of my eye that he was coming back. I mean, all I could do was say, Jo, please get up, think of Layla and Coolin, just think of the kids and please get up, please move. And she was saying, Fazila, I can't move, I'm hurt. As he'd done that, he stood up and very calmly just said, that's for Britain first, Britain will always be first, Britain first, and walked off.
Mark Dolan, manager of the vape lounge, told police he had seen somebody lingering outside his shop, acting in a strange way. He said, I can definitely say that the man who discharged the gun was the man I had seen outside my shop. David Honeybell was inside the library when the attack happened.
I had a loud bang. Just looked at each other, what? That? So I stood up and went to the door. I saw this bloke with a knife stabbing someone. So I went back into the library and said to anybody who would listen, call the police, quick, call the police. He came back, went to his bag and got a gun out. And he stood over Jo, just straddled her, and aimed straight to the head, and shot her in the head. Then he stepped back, cocked his gun, and shot her in the midriff.
Also witnessing from inside the library was Stephen Connolly. It was very cold. He just very coldly walked away. He just looked like a dishevelled old man, to be honest. Julie Holmes was working in the cake shop almost directly across the road from the attack. I saw Mrs. Cox fall backwards into the road and thought I saw the man punching her while she was on the ground. I realised he was stabbing the lady all over the top half of her body. He briefly left only to return and carry on stabbing Mrs. Cox. Just behind the car I could see something black and he went into the bag. He came back with a gun in his hand but not the knife. At that point I closed my eyes and heard a really loud popping noise. He did something with the top of the gun and then he pointed it at the lady again. He then took a step sort of into the road and he looked around and he looked towards where I was stood and he looked me in the eye and he lifted the gun, not pointing it towards me but just in a gesture. I ran behind the counter. All the time I was looking out of the window. I went to the door and locked it. He went back onto the pavement where the black bag was, he put something in it, 2 things, and he picked up the bag. Clark Rothwell was further down the street. I was outside the sandwich shop close to the library when I heard a popping sound. I looked around and there was a guy standing over a woman on the floor. He seemed to have what looked like an old gun, like a musket in his hand, and he shot her again in the middle. He then seemed to shoot a 3rd time towards her head or face. He was also stabbing at her with what looked like a hunting knife, about 1 foot long. He was stabbing her and waving the knife around. A man who I know as Bernard tried to get near, but the man swung his knife around and caught him in the stomach. Blood started coming out. He was shouting what sounded like, Britain first, but then seemed to panic and hurried off. He seemed scared and hurried off towards Union Street, dumping a jacket on the floor. I got into my van and tried to follow him, but I lost him. Just up from the library, Ben Abdallah emerged from the Azura Cafe. The customers and I went outside and I saw a guy with a baseball cap of medium height roughing up someone, moving and kicking his legs. The attacker then pulled out a gun. It was like a makeshift gun. It was chunky like a cucumber. It wasn't like a normal gun you see, but like an old-style handgun. He fired the first shot, then the second shot. There was probably 3 or 4 seconds in between them. There was a lady. Her head was tilted back and her hair was roughed up, and her face was bleeding. Her leg was bleeding, but I could see she was alive because she was leaning on her hand. Jack Foster parked his car on Market Street shortly before 1 p.m. and visited William Hill betting shop. He heard shouting and screaming and said, "I saw the defendant with a gun." I shouted at the top of my voice, "Leave her fucking alone." I saw Joe stood behind a parked car. Joe was stood more or less outside the library. I saw she got shot twice. I heard him shout "Britain first" or something along those lines. The attacker wore dark clothing, a baseball cap, and carried a holdall which he put his gun inside. Rashid Hussain, a taxi driver, had just arrived on Market Street. I heard a noise like a firecracker going off or fireworks going off before the sound of people shouting and screaming. Everyone was going towards the library. I parked my car there and went towards the library. A guy was stabbing someone. When I reached near, he stepped back. I said, "What are you doing? What's wrong with you?" He just started waving the knife towards us, saying, "Move back, otherwise I'm going to stab you." I stepped back when I was told the attacker had a gun. He shot once, moved back and shot again. I saw Mrs. Cox bleeding from the mouth. Staff from the accountants across the road included Michelle Davey, who shouted, "What the hell?" after hearing a bang and a scream. There was a lady on the floor in between 2 parked cars and a gentleman stood kicking. I said, "He's kicking the shit out of her." The stabbing seemed very slow and very precise. It was as if he knew where he wanted to stab his victim. Adam Howard, also from the accountants, said, "The knife attack was quite calculated, quite slowish." I shouted, "Get the fuck off." Louise Kesking, another accounts worker, said, "The man in the attack was the same one I noticed lingering outside the vape lounge sometime before the killing." Tracy Bywood, who worked at the residential home, said, "I saw him wind his hand in her hair and drag her off the pavement. It was horrible what I saw. She went down on the floor like a sack of potatoes. It was awful to see a lady get such animosity. He was so peaceful and calm, as if he hadn't done anything wrong." Another care worker, Shelley Morris, was on a cigarette break outside Priestley Care Home and heard a big pop and a very loud piercing scream. She looked over the wall to Market Street where she could see a man with a knife. It were long. I just saw it in a swinging motion. He went over with a short-barreled gun, took aim and shot towards the floor. From these witness accounts, it seems the gunman put the holdall on the ground before removing individual weapons to use in the attack. He probably did have 2 hands free to reload the bolt-action gun between shots. I suspect his actions were rehearsed beforehand. There are some who suspect Joe Cox was not killed and the murder was hoaxed. Anyone who thinks deaths can't be hoaxed, please watch this compelling film about the 2013 Boston bombing. I am open-minded on this. It is possible, if the victim and 1 or 2 of the witnesses participated in a hoax, that all the other genuine witnesses were fooled. If you don't think this is possible, you must watch the Boston unbombing video. I can assure you it will change your mind. After you've watched it, you will realize just how realistic hoaxes can be made to look using moulage, blood pumps and other techniques. There are some very odd facts about Joe Cox's murder which, crazy as it might sound, seem to suggest a hoaxed death. The elderly man called Bernard Kenny, who tried to intervene during the attack, is said to have suffered a punctured liver, but was released from hospital days later. There are no interviews of him giving his account that I'm aware of, and he did not appear at the trial, which means his court testimony was hearsay. Whether she was killed or not, there is a man who is in Franklin prison for her murder. I discovered another witness on an internet forum who had not been asked to give evidence at the trial and had not given any media statements. I went to see this witness, who lives just a few streets from Market Street. She did not want to be named, but gave me a very detailed account of what she saw. She was stood here when she heard the first gunshot. I thought, "Oh my God, what's that?" After hearing the first shots, she then moved to the top of Market Street outside the vape lounge when she heard a third gunshot, although she was not looking at the attack when she heard the third shot. Definitely by here I'd heard all 3 shots. Everyone was running up towards me, so all I focused on were the people running up to me, and they were sort of looking backwards. And I was also concentrating across here because there was a woman that seemed to be in distress, which I now know to be Sandra. And that's what I was more worried about, was like, oh, that lady needs help. When the people ran past me, I don't know how long I stood there, but not very long, taking in the scene down here. Then it seemed to have died down a little, so I crossed the road here and thought I'll help that lady. I walked into the library and up the ramp, and then I stopped at the ramp. There was a lady leaning outside of the library door on the phone, and Sandra was just sort of walking up and down here by the car, wringing her hands. I was trying to make up my mind. Does she need help? Is she in distress? I think I walked up the ramp out of safety. Then I saw an Asian man on the telephone between the 2 parked cars, and I could hear him saying, "No, she's not breathing." I was standing there watching for a while, and then I moved up and saw the body then, and that's when I panicked, and I thought, oh my God, she's dead. So I definitely saw a dead body there, and I was staring at the body for a while. I didn't know who she was at that time. I then asked this witness, in one of your earlier emails to me, you said you saw the victim's legs, but you did not actually see the whole body. Yes, I saw the whole body, but the legs were at my side towards the path, and the head was towards the road, and she was sort of twisted, and she had a coat on which sort of flared out. I was quite shocked when I got back to the news. In fact, I said to me dad, that's not her because of the legs. Because of the legs. The legs were quite stocky, and the photos they were showing, Jo Cox was really small. But when you sent me the photos of the legs of Jo Cox, I thought they are quite short and stocky. Just to explain this, when this witness explained that she did not think the legs were those of Jo Cox, I sent her this photograph, after which she confirmed yes, this could have been the legs that she witnessed. I asked, did you see the head at all? There was so much blood. Did you see the hair? Maybe because it was covered in blood, it looked a lot darker than it did on the television, but probably a really dark blonde, long down to about here. I didn't see her face, she was facing the maroon car. This witness also saw Fazila Aswat standing next to Jo Cox and remarked on how composed she was. I found the composure of Fazila Aswat quite amazing. This witness attended to Sandra Major and sat on a wall next to her and asked her what happened. Major explained that the victim was her boss and a man had come and shot and stabbed her. Here's another quote from this witness. When the police arrived and pushed me and Sandra roughly behind the barrier, Sandra tried to say who she was, but they ignored her and she was pushed aside like the rest of us. However, Fazila and the other Asian man who was on the phone disappeared. I don't know if the police took them to one side or took them away. I never saw where they went. Something else worthy of note about Fazila Aswat's actions comes from Brendan Cox's book. He describes that when Fazila used her mobile phone to summon help, she did not ring 999, but instead rang a police chief inspector she had been given the number of a few weeks earlier. It's odd that she didn't call 999, considering she had a dying woman in front of her. She also seemed very keen to get Jo Cox to the library within a particular time frame.
She was supposed to hit back into the office for 12 o'clock. But I knew Jo would never come at that time. She was always late. And obviously we had the surgery booked for 1 o'clock. So we ideally wanted to get to Burstall for about 9:45. She came into the office at 12, I think about 35. I said, we don't have time for you to get a sandwich, but I've got a pasta bake for you in the fridge. Heat it up in the microwave and you can have it on the way.
I must stress here, not one witness to the murder knew Tommy Mair, nor named Tommy Mair as being a suspect at the scene of the attack. And in court, the witnesses were not asked if the man in the dock was the man they saw carrying out the murder. Another witness who featured in media reports was Sam Watson, who said he thought the perpetrator wore a black baseball cap and headed north out of Market Street towards Howden Clough. Watson also said in one interview, while repeatedly touching his nose, that he did not hear a shot and that he did not think anyone else had heard a shot. This is at odds with all the other witness accounts, who all heard shots. If he did not hear shots, then he cannot have been anywhere near where the attack took place. The witness whom I interviewed at length was stood outside the vape lounge when the third shot was fired. She said she saw people coming up Market Street to get away from what was happening. She stated categorically that nobody wearing a baseball cap came up out of the north end of Market Street. She believed the perpetrator must have headed south. I don't think we can accept Watson's account as reliable. It is suspicious, in my opinion, that his account contains two pieces of information pertaining to the patsy. Firstly, the black cap, and secondly, the direction he points to is the arrest location on Rysdale Avenue. He was well mic'd up for this interview. Was someone feeding him his lines? If he saw the perpetrator, why didn't he give evidence in court? Another thing to clear up is that the majority of witnesses of the murder reported the perpetrator wearing a white cap, but some, including Fazila Aswat, said he was wearing a dark cap. How could witnesses get something as simple as this so wrong? I can offer a few suggestions why this might have happened. If this was a state operation, as I suspect, some of the witnesses might have been part of the operation, or controlled witnesses, placed near the scene so that there is some degree of control. They can be used to control other witnesses, for example. When they realised their cock-up with the colour of the baseball cap, they may have panicked and asked their controlled witnesses to change their statements so they line up with the man that was arrested. Or witnesses might have read about or heard about the man being arrested wearing a black cap and replaced their recollection with this information. Predominantly, though, witnesses saw the attacker in a white cap, and this is shown consistently in CCTV images, but the man in the white cap was not Tommy Mair. The first-hand witness I have interviewed said she stayed at the scene for about 20 minutes before she left. She states that the police arrived after about 15 minutes and that she did not witness any ambulance during the 20-minute period she was at the scene. I have been told the official arrival time for the ambulance was 1 minute past 1, which is 9 minutes after the attack. If this is correct, it's possible the witness either did not see the ambulance behind all these other vehicles or has not judged the time correctly. The official story states that she was pronounced dead at 1:48 p.m. by a doctor with paramedics at the scene. This was probably inside an ambulance. So 56 minutes after the murder, she was still in Market Street, which seems a long time. Why wasn't she whisked to hospital? One part of this mystery, which might also point to some sort of state operation, was what happened to the body after it left Market Street. Here is an email I received from a viewer. My nephew's mother works at NHS Leeds, specifically working on the NHS's legal code of conduct when dealing with murder cases. When the Joe Cox murder happened, the body was taken straight down to London, breaking all legal protocol. Apparently, the Leeds staff were not allowed any access to the body and were kept away. As far as I am aware, this is illegal without the permission of the local coroner. And why did they not allow the local coroner's office to deal with this body? What were they afraid of? Is this evidence of a hoaxed death? It wasn't just Cox that was whisked to London. Thomas Mair's first legal hearing at Magistrates' Court was held in London on the 18th of June. There is no logical reason for this. Also, why was the trial held in London? As far as I'm aware, there's no reason to hold the trial in London. It should have been held in Yorkshire. Think of all the people that had to travel to London and be put up in hotels. This evidence suggests the operation was being run from London. I've just arrived in Birstall, so the first thing I thought I would do, seeing as it's dark, is walk the distance from Thomas Mair's house to Market Street. So I set off from his house at bang on 10:15 p.m. So I'm doing a purposeful, fairly fast walk as he was on camera. We'll see how long it takes to get to Market Street. So I'm on Market Street now and it's bang on 1:30. It's taken me 15 minutes. I'm now going to do the walk from here to Rysdale Avenue. So I'm going to walk into the street that he's supposed to have changed his clothes, John Nelson Close, and just walk to the bottom. So I'm at the very bottom of John Nelson Close. So turn around now and then start heading towards Rysdale Avenue. So it's taken me 17 minutes. I'm on Rysdale Avenue now. This is the spot of the arrest. I want to look now at what happened after the perpetrator left Market Street. If we go by CCTV evidence, we cannot say where the perpetrator went after he reached Huddersfield Road. I think it is entirely possible that at this point, those running the operation knew Mair was not in the garden at the cul-de-sac of John Nelson Close and therefore abandoned the plan for the perpetrator to go to the garden. So I think it's possible the perpetrator was picked up by an unmarked car shortly after getting onto Huddersfield Road. The police allege that the perpetrator's dark blue suit jacket, his white cap and some shell casings for good measure were found in the secluded, overgrown garden some days after the murder. I do not think we can infer from this that the perpetrator went into the garden, because these items could easily have been planted there at a later time. In my investigation, I spoke to a man whose parents live on John Nelson Close. His parents live 2 doors from the garden in question, and his aunt and uncle live next door to the garden in question. He told me that nobody had seen any person go into or out of the garden that day. And he said he was not aware of any witness living on John Nelson Close who saw anyone go into or come out of the garden. I am not aware of any witness at the trial seeing a man going to or from the garden either. The man I spoke to also said that the police told his parents it was unusual that nobody had seen the perpetrator. Well, it's not unusual if the perpetrator wasn't there. I suspect Tommy Mair was not in the garden where he was supposed to get shot, so the perpetrator did not bother to go there and was instead picked up in a vehicle. I don't think the operation knew whether Tommy successfully reached the garden, but decided to leave the jacket and cap at that location because if he had been in the garden, it means the evidence trail would be consistent with Tommy Mair leaving the garden without the suit jacket and white hat. Ridiculous as it might sound, the police claim the perpetrator jumped into the garden wearing 2 caps, then removed one of the caps, removed his jacket, reloaded his gun dispensing of shell casings, and then made his way to Rysdale Avenue for no apparent reason. There is a witness, Darren Playford, who claims in his phone call to the police that he saw the perpetrator disappear behind the Vaults pub. Later in the phone call, he states, "I can see him again. He has got a black baseball cap. He has got a grey t-shirt on. He is walking up Brownhill Road. A black baseball cap, he has changed it from a black one to a white one." In the transcripts I have found, Playford does not say he saw the man go into John Nelson Close. He does not say he saw him remove the white baseball cap or the jacket. If Darren Playford's phone call is 100% genuine, and I will come to that in a second, it is entirely possible that he has seen 2 different men. It is possible he saw the perpetrator wearing a white cap disappear behind the Vaults pub, then sometime later saw Tommy Mair wearing a black baseball cap and grey t-shirt walking up Brownhill Road and assumed they were the same man. But there is another major issue with this evidence, which is the timing of the events. The official story claims that after the perpetrator left John Nelson Close, he headed briskly up Brownhill Road and followed this route to Rysdale Avenue, where he was arrested. I have walked all of the routes and timed them myself. It takes 3 minutes to get from the bottom of Market Street to the garden on John Nelson Close. He left Market Street at 12:54. That means he would have arrived at John Nelson Close Garden at 12:57. We can see from this helicopter camera at 1:31 and 40 seconds the suspect had already been arrested. I estimate the arrest took place 2 minutes before this at 1:29 p.m. Let's follow the route backwards from Rysdale Avenue and work out what time the suspect would have set off along Brownhill Road. It takes 14 minutes to walk from the top of John Nelson Close to Rysdale Avenue, so that means he would have left John Nelson at 1:15 p.m. As I just mentioned, he is alleged to have arrived at the garden in John Nelson Close at 12:57 p.m. This suggests the perpetrator spent 18 minutes hiding in the garden on John Nelson Close or somewhere in that area. This means that when Darren Playford saw him disappear behind the Vaults pub, it was about 18 minutes later when he saw him again going up Brownhill Road. If the police were told that the perpetrator was at the Vaults pub at 12:57 by Darren Playford, they surely would have been there within a few minutes. Darren Playford states in the call he went down Union Street to get away from the attacker, and was followed down Union Street by the attacker. He then claims he saw him go up Huddersfield Road and disappear behind the Vaults pub, then reappear wearing a different cap going up Brownhill Road. But how is it possible for the perpetrator to have been gone for 18 minutes? Was Playford hanging on the phone for 18 minutes? This news article supports the idea that the Playford phone call took 20 minutes. Other news articles claim the phone call was only 14 minutes. My estimate would be, if the perpetrator spent 1 minute in the garden, the phone call would have only lasted 5 minutes. The phone call, as far as I am aware, has never been released in its entirety. Only segments have appeared in news media. Here are the sections of it I have pieced together, totalling just over 3 minutes.
Hello, is that police, did you say? Hello?
Hello, yeah, it's shooting everybody.
Who's shooting everybody?
The gunman.
A gunman shooting everybody?
Yeah.
Okay, whereabouts?
Outside the library in Birstall.
In Birstall?
Yes.
Just confirm that location for me, please.
Outside the library in Birstall, West Yorkshire. Exactly.
Thank you. Okay. How many people are injured?
I don't know, he stabbed someone as well.
He stabbed someone as well?
I stabbed a lady.
Okay, are you safe now?
He's following me at the moment.
Sorry?
He's following me at the moment. I'm just trying to get away from him. He's walking now towards, if you get the helicopter, he's walking towards Huddersfield Road.
He's walking towards Huddersfield Road?
Yes, the main Gelded Road.
Yeah.
Near the Vaults pub.
He's walking towards the Vaults pub?
He's walking away from the Vaults pub.
Yeah.
Now, he's got a black bag in his hand.
He's got a black bag in his hand.
He's got a white cap on. And he's walking towards the Vaults pub now, on the left-hand side of the road, going up the hill.
Black bag, white cap.
A carrier bag, yeah.
Okay.
You might need the
okay,
firearms.
Okay, love.
He's an elderly bloke.
He's an elderly bloke.
Yeah, he's got a white baseball cap on.
Yeah.
He's crossed the road now.
Yeah.
Towards the Vaults pub.
Okay. Just make sure that you ensure your own safety. Okay. If it's not safe, you need to leave or hide or barricade any doors. Okay.
If you hurry up, you'll get him.
Okay.
There's hell on this chaos. He stabs people and shot people. Right, I can see him again.
You can
It looks like
see
he's taking
him
his top
again.
off.
He's taking
Yes,
his top
right.
off.
He's got a black baseball cap.
It's a black baseball.
He's got the black carrier bag in his right hand. He's got a grey shirt on.
Yeah. And a
with
black
trousers.
A black trousers.
Yes. Now he's walking up Brownhill Road now.
And has got a black cap on.
A black baseball cap has changed it
And
from a white one to a black one.
And he's walking up where, love?
Brownhill Road. If they get a police car at Brownhill Road, which is off Brookroyd Lane, you get a police car at the top of there and one at the bottom, you'll catch him.
In Nick Collestrom's trial report, he states at the trial it was mentioned that the perpetrator went through some woods. I am not sure of the source of this statement, but if the perpetrator had continued along Brookroyd Lane, 6 minutes on, he would arrive at woods at Wilton Park. Was the real Tommy Mair somewhere over there? Was he at his mother's house in Batley, which he would get to by walking along Brookroyd Lane and is just over 10 minutes walk in that direction? When I discovered this anomaly in the evidence, I realised that Darren Playford was probably the most important witness in establishing what happened between Market Street and Rysdale Avenue. In fact, seemingly, he was the only witness, which itself is unbelievable. So I decided to contact him. Right, I've just knocked on the door of Darren Playford. It's a Sunday morning, it's 11:15. His van was outside the house. There's a car in front of the house with the letters, clearly a personal number plate. Quite an expensive car. I knocked on the door. Young lad answered, maybe teenage lad. I said, is this Darren Playford's house? He said, yes. I said, can I speak to him? He said, oh, he's not in. I said, well, when will he be back? He said he doesn't know. He's at work. He's at work, but his work van is outside and his car is outside. So I suspect that may have been an avoidance. When I got back from my trip, a few days later I decided to telephone Darren Playford and ask him if he would talk to me about his telephone call. I told him I was researching the Joe Cox case and asked him if he had time to answer a few questions about what he saw. He said he didn't want to go through it all again and said he'd rather I get the information off the police. I discussed the conversation I had with Playford with statement analyst Peter Hyatt, and he suggested this witness might speak to me if I contacted him a second time. A few weeks later, I wrote to Darren Playford and asked in writing if he would reconsider answering some questions. Here is what I wrote. Dear Darren, you may recall I telephoned you a few weeks ago asking if you would talk to me about what you saw on the day of the Joe Cox murder. I have asked the police if they can release your telephone call, but this has not been possible. I am trying to resolve one or two discrepancies in the accounts of events. You saw the perpetrator leaving Market Street where you say he went down Union Street, up Huddersfield Road, onto Brookroyd Lane and then into John Nelson Close, where he is alleged to have discarded clothing, then back onto Brookroyd Lane and up onto Brownhill Road. I have walked from Market Street to Brownhill Road following the same path and it took me 3 minutes. I have attached an article from the Huddersfield Examiner which states that your 999 call lasted 20 minutes. Can you recall how long you were on the phone? Can you recall how long the perpetrator spent in John Nelson Close? I suspect the article might have got this wrong and that the call may have been much shorter. I have included a sheet for you to write answers to these questions and a stamped addressed envelope. I would be very grateful if you could return it. If you are prepared to take part in a short interview piece to camera, just a few minutes, I would be happy to pay you a fee for your time and trouble. I hope you can help me with this, Darren. I am trying to find a truthful account of what happened. Best wishes, Richard Hall. The day after Darren Playford received my letter, I was visited by South Wales Police, who told me that Darren Playford had made a complaint against me for harassment. You can judge for yourself whether you think this was an overreaction. I was asked by police to sign a document to acknowledge that I had been informed about this complaint against me, and I was strongly advised not to try and contact him again. In order to get South Wales Police to issue me with this document, somebody, probably quite high up in West Yorkshire Police, must have contacted South Wales Police. People who are familiar with how harassment cases are dealt with have told me this is extremely unusual. The most likely action that would probably be taken would be first to determine if there was any threat made. If not, the person would perhaps be advised to just ignore the letter and contact the police again if there's any further contact. In my opinion, it is an overreaction and suggests I may have hit a nerve by asking these simple questions. As I said earlier, even if Darren Playford's call was genuine, and I am not saying it wasn't, it does not provide proof that the man being arrested on Ryesdale Avenue was the man who left Market Street, nor that the man wearing the white cap was the man wearing the black cap. Just having 5 minutes filming in the park here, and spent the night here. And when I went to Birstall, parked in the Tesco's car park next to Market Street, who pulls up? Darren Playford in his van on Market Street, parked right near where he was parked on the day of the murder. I couldn't believe it, so I just kept my head down. I didn't look, and I walked with my camera to the chapel, filmed there, came back, and he's still there sitting on Market Street. So I didn't hang around. I didn't think it would be wise to hang around. I didn't want to be accused of following him if he's put a complaint in against me for harassment. But is that a coincidence that he just so happens to be there at 9 AM on Market Street, the one time I'm there filming?